Hi there, it's Miss Julie, and I am here to tell you a story called The Smell of Baking Bread. Now, this story is told in a lot of different countries, and there's a lot of different versions of it, but I'm going to tell you my version. Now, have you ever smelled fresh baking bread? When I was a little girl, my mom, she used to make fresh baked bread, and it smelled wonderful. Oh, it was one of the best smells you could ever smell. In fact, the smell of the bread was almost as good as the taste of it was. Now, once upon a time in a country far, far away, in a little tiny village, there lived a very poor man. This man, he was so poor that he didn't have money to go in the store and buy any groceries or bread or anything to eat. So he would walk along the streets of the village and he would just smell all the smells he could find. And one day, when he was walking, he walked past the bakery and he took in a deep breath. And he smelled the smell of fresh baked bread. It was wonderful. And so he sat down on the bench in front of that bakery and he just enjoyed the smells. Oh, it smelled so good. When he was sitting there just enjoying the day and all those great smells, when all of a sudden the baker came running out, yelling at him, saying, "Stop, thief! You have to pay for that!" And the poor man, he was confused. He said, "Pay for what? I haven't stolen anything." And the baker said, "Oh, yes, you have. You have stolen the smell of my fresh baked bread, and you need to pay for it." Now, the poor man was very confused, and he said, "I didn't steal any smell of bread. How can you put a price on the smell of bread? I'm just a poor man, and I was just enjoying something that is naturally free on the air." And the baker said, "See? You admit it, you did steal the smell of my bread." And the man said, "I just don't know." And the baker said, "Look, I get up every morning at 4 o'clock. I gather the finest flour and the best ingredients. I mix it all up in a bowl, and then I make a big loaf of it, and I knead that, and I pat it. And then when it's ready, I put it in the oven where it bakes and makes that smell that you stole." The poor man, he just looked at him and said, "Okay, yes, you work hard to make the bread and you deserve to be paid for the bread. But the smell is something that just floats on the air, just free for anyone to smell. You should get paid for those loaves of bread that you're making, but you can't charge for the smell." Well, the two of them went back and forth, arguing, and pretty soon they got a big crowd, and the people in the crowd started to listen, and they thought, well, half of them thought the poor man was right. You can't charge for a smell. And the other half thought, well, the baker was right. I mean, he did put in a lot of work to make that bread, which produced the smell. Well, they couldn't decide what should be done either. So finally, someone from the crowd said, "I know. Let's go to the wise man of the village. He'll know what to do." And so they all tromped up the hill to where the wise man lived, and they knocked on his door, and the wise man opened it and said, "What can I help you with?" I think he was a little surprised to see this big crowd of people standing in front of his door. And the crowd, they said, "Well, you need to settle an argument for us." And the wise man said, "Well, what's the argument? And so the baker came forward and he told his story about how he made the bread and how the poor man stole it and stole the smell and that he deserved to be paid for it. And then the poor man, well, he told his side of the story and about how smells are free. You shouldn't have to pay for a smell. And the wise man listened carefully to both sides of the story, and then he finally said, all right, let me think a minute. And he thought, and he said, all right, I've come to a decision, and my decision is final. And everybody agreed to that. And so the wise man said to the poor man, do you have any coins in your pocket? And the poor man reached down and he pulled out a few coins and said, well, yes, but it's not enough to pay for a loaf of bread. And the wise man said, okay, I want you to take those coins and put them in your hand. And then I want you to make a fist around your coins and take that fist and shake it next to the baker's ear. So the poor man did that. And when he was done, the wise man looked at them both and said, there, payment has been made. Now the baker, he was confused. He said, I don't understand. I haven't received any payment. And the wise man said, oh, yes, you have. You see, some people may think my decisions are a little strange, but they are always fair. You see, you have been paid for the smell of your bread with the sound of the coins. And that is the end of this story.